as sons and daughters under this land, in this land of South Sudan, here we are in an academic institution called the University of Juba. It's an institution that is to help us build our brain and make us gain knowledge and skills that make us will meet the aspiration of your creation for the Republic of South Sudan to be one among the greatest nations of the world. What I would like to ask is, let the power of the Holy Spirit come to this room and bless us, particularly in this room today, as we are going to have a space of exchanging words, ideas, and views among ourselves. This all should be in peace, and this is what I've asked through our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Can we have any volunteer from our Islamic faith? Can anyone volunteer from our Islamic faith? Any volunteer? Okay. So based on this, we'd like to say here we are in this hall. This is a hall of an academic institution. It's a historical institution. University of Juba. I'm quite sure if I take statistics, some of us who are in this room were students before in this academic institution, and some of us now have different titles, different positions. Today here we are in this institution called Juba University to come together and brainstorm and really share ideas, share thoughts under the theme of this book that we're launching today. So today we're launching a book, Revamping African Foreign Policies in the 21st Century. And this is in the Republic of South Sudan that we are taking our independence in 2011. Still we are concerned, and still we feel we need to stand up as like any other nation among the nations of the League with foreign policies that help us to assert ourselves as a nation, to assert ourselves as part of the global community. One thing I'd like to emphasize in this particular moment before we roll out our event is that this book is an outcome of research. And now it's a high moment for us to discover that research play a big role in shaping mindset, in shaping direction of human society. So we should put enough resources, enough emphasis, enough energy to promote research in such academic institutions like University of Juba and other universities across the country. So I'd like to emphasize that it is very important for us to know that today's product is a product of the research. Without the research, it's very hard for us to discover and to share and to shape a direction of the nation we want. And the nation we want is the Republic of South Sudan. That is described as one of the best republics among the nation of leagues. I can't go further. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome my co-MC, to welcome one of our sisters, to tell us who are the authors behind this book for revamping African foreign policies in the 21st century. And we're here in University of Juba, in the Republic of South Sudan. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, my co-MC, my brother Nyuon for that brief introduction. I would also want to tell the gathering that we have three MCs. The first MC is Nyuon, as I mentioned earlier on. He is an executive director at Community Empowerment for Progress Organization, a local organization in South Sudan. Number two, I am also very privileged to also introduce to you our co-MC, who is our sister, Dr. Angelina Bazuba. She's the Director for National Transformation Leadership Institute of the University of Juba. As Nyuon mentioned, we are revamping African foreign policies. And at this very juncture, let me invite her to tell us who are these people behind the book, which is being launched at the moment. My sister, Dr. Angelina, you are highly welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I observe the protocol is in place. The book has been co-authored by three writers. We do have Professor Joram Biswaro, who is the current AU representative to South Sudan. Professor Biswaro has had a long-term experience, not only in South Sudan, but also in Africa. He has actually taken a very active role when it comes to the negotiation between the current government and also the conflicting parties. But also, Professor Biswaro has played a very critical role when it comes to integrating issues of regional integration in various contexts in Africa, but also building the relationship between Africa and other continents. Professor Biswaro has also taken a very pivotal role when it comes to supervising postgraduate students at the University of Juba. And we are so proud to be part of this initiative in order to push forward the aspect of research. The second author of this book is Dr. Abraham. Dr. Abraham will be introduced later. He is the current dean in the School of Social and Economic Studies, but also with a background in social and political issues, in particular issues of political science and international relations. So he has had all this experience when it comes to relating with different institutions, but also writing in the area of African region and beyond. The third author is the late Professor Samson Wasarra, who passed on early this year. Professor Wasarra is a political scientist in background, but also with a vast experience in the areas of political science, but also regional integration. He has also contributed greatly in terms of writing this book, but also based on his past experience as a former Vice Chancellor of the University of Bhar-el-Ghazal, and eventually he was the Director of the Institute of Peace and Security Studies. He's coming in with a lot of knowledge and rich experience, given the fact that he has also taken part in a number of research as well as supervising our students. So I do hope that with all this rich knowledge and experiences, you are all well prepared to listen to what they have to share with us this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, my sister, Dr. Angelina, for that good introduction about the photos. We recognize the presence of everyone, as I mentioned earlier on, and particularly now, we are recognizing the presence of the Ethiopian ambassador to South Sudan. Sir, you're welcome. We also have the ambassador of the state of Eritrea around here with us, and other guests around. We are also pleased to also recognize the presence of the former governor of Jonglei State, Philip Aguirre. You're welcome. While we recognize the presence of everyone here, we are getting into why we're here. But before we get into it, my name is Nyuon. I am a South Sudan-based journalist and editor. I write for news agencies and also do a lot of editing and also developing content for local media in Juba. That's all about me. At this very juncture, let me welcome Nyuon to invite for us our panelists or discussants for today's book launch. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, my brother. Before I welcome our panelists, I'd like to take this opportunity to bring the spirit and the feeling of us being an Africans. I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the presence of Ethiopian ambassador with us in our midst, Galen of Abyssinia, Salam No, feel at home, feel within South Sudan. I'd like to take this opportunity also to welcome, I'm informed, Kenyan ambassador here, Sasa. You're most welcome to join us. And other diplomats with us in the hall. They'd like to say, feel at home, feel you're within Africa, feel you're standing together with your brothers and sisters in the land of South Sudan. And I know there are people from UN agencies with us here. You're most welcome. As a family of the National Leagues, welcome you. But also above that, we have our scholars with us in the room. We have professors who have made the journey and made this name called University of Juba among the names of universities in the world of learning, in the world of academics. So not to go further, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome our panelists into the forum. And it's a privilege to have this opportunity to start asking Honorable Minister Dr. Benjamin Marial, you are more welcome to the high table. Let's welcome him. Honorable, you are most welcome. All the comments. Yes, Minister of Presidential Affairs, before Minister of Foreign Affairs, and we are revamping foreign policy. So he's the right person, in the right place, in the right moment, in the right institution of academics. We have to test the thoughts and the challenges. After that, education is very important. Education is something that has made us in this room. Without education, we can't be here. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome Dr. John Guy. You are most welcome to the next table. And we know you have been as an advisor before on education. You are most welcome here. Yeah, let's welcome Dr. John Guy. And we are highly blessed that in front of us, former Minister of Foreign Affairs, former advisor of President on education affairs. So the learning and the practice are in front of us now. So we're going to revamp foreign policy. So for us to go to the room of talent and argument and challenge, one of an academia, God also blessed her. She starts running. If this university graduates, the students that are going to occupy various public service offices, whether they have the quality of academics from the university or not, allow me to take this opportunity to welcome Honorable and Professor Dr. Julia Akoria, most welcome to the high table, Under Secretary of Public Service. Now, we graduate them, they go out there. We need to revamp foreign policy so that when they go outside there, they are known, these are graduates from Juba University. Dr. Julia, most welcome. Have a seat.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Julia. As they sit in their various titles with their various practices, we now need to enter to the room of thoughts and thinking. The person behind this research material that today end up as a book, so that we can test the knowledge behind this particular topic, revamping African foreign policies in the 21st century. Dr. Abraham, you are most welcome. Yes, we have the panelists in front of us. This is an academic institution. It's an institution that when we're going to exercise the arguments in the room, we look at the positive side of the story, but also we don't neglect what we feel is the negative side of the story because we are in an academic institution. So we're here to test thoughts. And we're here to discuss honestly and cross-examine the knowledge that is enshrined in this. So, I will say later on, this book will be exposed, how we're going to distribute the few copies we have here, but also how we try to test our level of SSP, how much SSP we need you to pull out and put behind this book. So before we go further, I'd like to welcome my co-MC to now take us for the next stage. I've done with this part, the high table, the floor is going to be yours, and we're going to hear from you in terms of why we're here in this hall, and the audience are watching at you. So if I can start by giving Dr. Abraham the floor, is it? Yes, Dr. Abraham, the floor is yours. Why did you decide for this?
Let me request us to stand up. I would like to take this opportunity that we dedicate 1 minute for the memory of a colleague that has contributed to this work. May his soul rest in eternal peace. You're welcome. It is a great privilege for me to be here today. I'm happy that this day has come to the reality, and it has been an overdue time that we have been struggling to the time that we lost our colleague in the process. And here we would have been too. Professor Ambassador Joram could have been here, but because of urgent and some emergency at the place of work, he has to leave yesterday without mostly notice, because there's something that needs him at AU headquarters urgently. But we had planned this together, and today he's with us here, and he had endorsed all the plans that were put in place. This book came as a result of teaching foreign policy analysis over 5 years at the graduate level, and this was also inspired by my PhD in foreign policy, where Professor Wasarra, the late Wasarra, and Ambassador Professor Joram, who had been a professor of political science at the University of Dar es Salaam for many years. In fact, Professor Wasarra was my supervisor, and Professor Joram was my external examiner. And as a result of this, 3 of us, having looked at the literature and academic work on foreign policy in Africa, we found that it has become very difficult to get an academic book that is supposed to act as a guideline on African foreign policies. We have a number of documents that deal with African foreign policies, but we say that we need to look at some of these issues in a new way. And as a result of this, the idea of writing the book was born in 2017. And we had been working on this until 2020, when we sent the book for publications. And the book came out in January this year. But because of the issues of COVID-19 and some other busy schedules, where me and Professor Wasarra could not get an appropriate time where all of us were supposed to be here, then this is why it has taken now 10 months in the line. The book was supposed to be launched on Saturday last week, which is 9 September, but unfortunately I lost the wife to my niece, or to my cousins, and as a result of that we pushed the launch to today, which also coincides with the time that Professor Joram was called to the headquarters. Here, the book is entitled Revamping African Foreign Policies in the 21st Century, Ingredients, Tools, and Dynamics. In fact, for the ladies who are here, and for men that are very close to the kitchen, it is always very difficult for you to cook a nice stew, a nice food without ingredients. And as a result of this, we thought that there is something that is missing. And that ingredients, if it is put in where it is supposed to be, then we are going to make our foreign policies to be different. The book covered 6 countries which are selected across African continent. It covers the foreign policy of South Sudan. It covers the foreign policy of Kenya. The Kenyan ambassador is here. It covered the foreign policy of Ethiopia. It covered the foreign policy of Egypt. It covered the foreign policy of South Africa. And it covers the foreign policy of Nigeria. These countries were selected to act as a sample to represent African foreign policy. The views, the ideas, the concepts presented in the book are solely for authors, and as a result of this, we might differ a lot with the practitioners, which is always the case, because the way we think and the way we approach issues as academic is always different from the perspective of the practitioners. I would like to testify that working with distinguished academics in the caliber of Joram, Biswaro, and Samson, Wasarra, who are very renowned Pan-Africanists, it has not been a very easy journey, because some of us of this recent Chancellor.com, we are very liberal. And the book took almost 4 years because most of us were not able to agree on some of the ideas of how some of those things were supposed to look like. And this is one of the very big things that I learned from the process of coming up with this book. So, for African centuries, rejuvenating the foreign policy is supposed to be something that we should be able to deal with. And the essence of decision making by the national expert is supposed to affect the way we do things, especially in the context of foreign policy. Somebody would be able to ask, how is it possible that Africa doesn't have foreign policies? Do we have a concrete way of trying to say the concept of foreign policy originated from Africa? And you will be amazed that despite the time of colonialism, during the time of pre-colonial period, African foreign policy was in place. And it is from this book that you could be able to testify and understand that foreign policy is not a new thing in African context. It is only that, and I would like to quote, this is what Dr. Francis Madingen said when he wrote the preface, that the dilemma has been because African history and African way of doing things had always been dominated by other people, it makes it very difficult for the people that had the history to understand it. And that is why, as we sit here today, we believe this book is contributing to the same debate that we have. And this is one of the things that I would like to say, that African foreign policy technocrats understand the level of analysis would play a vital role in making and executing each African state foreign policy. But because of the variation in the interest, it makes it very difficult for these people to enhance whatever the things that they want to do. Generally speaking, diplomacy as it has roots in Africa and the cradle of humanity, and the idea of African diplomacy surprisingly has been seen as a new concept, because African states are very young compared to the rest in the world. And that's why looking at the political concept of how the Westphalian Treaty came into in Europe, that is why now that concept, mostly there's something that began in 1648, is believed to the beginning of the history. The vast majority of aspirant states were decreed sovereignty on a particular date, in a contrast to the state in the rest of the world. You know, what we call independent is something like the normal decree that I've always read on SSTV, that today you got independent. And this means it's something that you have to look for it for you to be able to get it. And this changed the way under which we have been thinking. So, when working on the issues of foreign policy, it is just but an extension of domestic policy. Therefore, I would like to say it on behalf of myself, on behalf of Professor Joram, on behalf of late Professor Samson Samuel Wasarra, we would like to welcome you to begin this debate with us. And that is why we are saying in the conclusion of the book on revamping African foreign policy, we said, let's walk the talk. Do your part, and African continent will never be the same again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abraham, for a very elaborate information, but also the summary of the foreign policies we have and the journey that we have all undertaken to get to where we are today. I think from what we gathered from you is that African policy technocrats can actually play a vital role in transforming our policies and, of course, foreign policies. So that means we do see the opportunity we have at hand, and we really need to venture out and see how we can push forward in terms of our relationship. But again, we noted that from your final statement, you say that foreign policy is actually an extension of domestic policies. So that means if we do have our domestic policy and we are able to really manage and manage around them, then we are able to see how we can expand and relate when it comes to working with other counterparts across the board. Thank you very much, Abraham, for that. I think based on that, I just want to throw the next question to the next speaker, Dr. Guy. What is your take on the book, based on what Dr. Abraham has just elaborated, and also the content of the book? I would like to invite you to react on that. Welcome, Dr. Guy. I think you can sit.
Thank you very much. I recognize the leadership of the university. With special mention of our senior scholar, Professor Nyuon, and colleagues, the Jubas, my brother, Dr. Branagh, and the other secretary, Dr. Julia. I would like to say that I had a chance to read the book, ask a question. I also would like to mention that those who authored the book are political scientists. And my training was in political science, but political science is a big thing. And when you deal with issues of foreign policy, if you are a political scientist, you have to know that foreign policy is part of the political science. They call it, in the field, international politics. So it can be political science, and also it can be political, international politics. Some call it international relations, but also they can call it international affairs. But others also, they would say it is called foreign relations. But also others also would call it foreign affairs, just like that. Others would call it international system. But also others would call it international diplomacy. So, so when political scientists talk like foreign policy, and you find these 6 or 7 different names, it's actually the same. This book, Revamping African Foreign Policies, the key word of it, which I found very interesting, is 21st century. The word 21st century, I think you all saw it. So it means the last century, the 20th century, 100 years was a very difficult test for international politics and for foreign policies of the countries. Partly because 3 very difficult wars happened. The First World War, and the Second World War, which was the European war, although we as Africans got involved. But I think most importantly, the Cold War, which was never cold, as political scientists would say, but it was devastating because it has no negative aspect. But I think that this book, based on what I do, and I will go over it in a very brief manner, I don't want us to go into detail of it, is to identify what is the vision of African foreign policy. If there is something called African foreign policy. Can you say that? And how does this relate to the first 100 years and 21 years now we are in? What happened? The first thing any student of politics will say, oh, look man, we happen to be only, I don't know how many, 3 countries, Ethiopia, Liberia, I don't know which other country. If you want to add Haiti, this is a different story, because of that. But we'll say from 2 countries to 54 is a big achievement. They can say I'm good. But I think what is important, the book did ask what is the vision of African foreign policy. Another thing that I find very interesting is the definition of what is interest. Then, 100 years ago, and now, in the 21st century. There is something called national interest for a country, but also there is something called regional interest. There is something called state interest. Each country has got its own interest, but every country has got its own people interest. But also I find very interesting there's something called individual leaders' interest. What does it mean? I happen to be in South Africa with Professor Deng. So under Marial, it was a different world. Our bank is different, and so much different. The influence of the leader also determines the interest of that country. Then there is natural resources. They determine how you deal with other countries. I also found out in the book that humanitarianism also can become, you know, we have our friends from different countries who are wealthy, so they bring a lot of billions of dollars to come and help us. That can become also amazing. So the national interest is very good. The second one is the security, what they call national security interest. It's very clear in the book. It could be human security. If you are hungry, there is food security. If you have lack of freedom, then there is freedom of expression. All these things, all these are called human security. And then you have security for the leadership. Country can end up the leadership, they feel insecure, they will turn the whole national interest into the security of the state system or the state regime or whatever you call it in politics. And then of course there is economic security. That's why in the national security, the difference between the national intelligence and the national security, that national security deals with issues of state security. But the intelligence deals basically on information. And in the context of South Sudan, I think they were put together, they want to now to portray it. The other aspect I found very interesting in the book is the ideological basis of foreign policy. You know, in Africa, and interestingly enough, Abraham himself, he became a student of, he's a student of Pan-Africanism because the two professors are. I was fortunate to do my PhD on this big thing called Pan-African movement, the whole year or so. What I found interesting in the book is that ideology did inform the foreign policy, or what became African foreign policy. And they articulate it very well. One, colonialism. How do you fight colonialism? You use Pan-Africanism. How do you use Pan-Africanism? Africans unite. If the Africans unite, then the colonial power will never be used. But then, what do you do with the colonial state that you inherit? And for example, my brother lived in Zimbabwe for many years, and when the independence took place, he didn't go during that time. It's not that old, but he went in the 90s, in the late 1990s. But what they did when they became independent, President Mugabe said, I want to know all the routes and the railroads, whether the economy is viable. Big report was written. The answer, all the roads are not economically viable for Zimbabwe. But they were viable for the colonial power because everything produced in the center, it is uplifted, it is gone. So what do we do with the colonial state? After we became independent, two things emerged according to the book. African nationalism, and then we have Pan-African movement. And so, when the century finished, in 2002, then the African leaders said, say, guys, I think this era is finished. We have to move from the organization of African unity to the Union of Africa. But how do you deal with it? There are three pillars. They say, one, we have to have something called African Renaissance, which is the culture of Africa. Then we have something called New Partnership for African Development, NEPAD, which will be our alternative power. But then the main ideology will be the unity of Africa. So these three pillars, from 1999 up to today, is what Africans are thinking to do. But of course, they have a problem, which brings me to the third point. The problem is, where does Africa fit in the world political system in relation to two things? What the book authors call the hard power, and what they call the soft power. The hard power, if you have a lot of arms, nuclear weapons, you have all these warheads, these rockets, but also if you have economic might, like China or another country. The soft one is technology. Someone somewhere, sitting somewhere, can just put up this system. That's it. So if you have technology, it's very important. But also culture. Do we have a unified culture as Africans? Or is this become the base of our culture? That one came out of the book really. They inform what it was. The other point is geopolitics. The link between geography, and politics. Where are you standing? Where are you as a person? they found this to be very important. Another one, leadership. They clearly identified. You cannot have a foreign policy if the leadership does not direct it the way it needs with national security, national interests. But also, leaders can have personal interests, but also the personality of the leadership, the personality of the society and the people also matters. And then you have the societal values, which is very important. Ethiopia is not like Cameroon, Cameroon is not like Central African Republic, and so on, so there must be. Another thing that I found very interesting was the question of international system workings. Where do you fit in this new world order? Bilateralism, the relationship between Sudan and Ethiopia and Kenya and others, is no longer very important for its own sake. There must be something bigger than bilateral. We are brothers, we are one country, two people in one country. Those people, they don't work. So what I say, bilateralism, while it is good, they also talk about multilateralism. But multilateralism is no longer what it used to be. You go to the United Nations, World Trade Organization, you go to OAU, to East African Republic, East African Community, they say, this one will be changed. There is something new called polylateralism. And Minister of Foreign Affairs knows exactly, ambassadors they know, polylateralism is mixture of everything. So it's not enough to say that, I have a liberation movement, liberated country, people fought. No, people don't really care very much about that. What is it that you bring on the table? Then, of course, the question of globalization, which I thought they should have elaborated here. Globalization revisited first the Cold War. We in South Sudan, we can see clearly, US and China relations not good and they are attacking us. We can see clearly. Now, how do we call this? Of course, it has to be a Cold War of some sort. They don't talk about it, but we feel the impact of it. So they feel that the book talk about globalization from perspective of Cold War, new Cold War. I don't know how you call it. And then you have multiculturalism. This is very serious. If you go to any country in Africa, you get these young people, they wear trousers falling down, they put a lot of things, the man put, I think, it's very strange culture. But if you go to any country in the world, you will find that culture is vocabulary. What does this mean? It is called multiculturalism. And then industrialization. We get all the goods coming from outside and we don't have it. It's also a foreign policy thing. Infrastructure, urbanization, climate change. The whole South Sudan is underwater. And the whole world knew about it about 30 years ago. Now we are feeling it. It means that we are not part of international system. Now people are saying, oh, because the government cannot do anything. Because the whole country, we cannot, nothing you can do. You can bring food and dump it in a dry place. This is climate change. Then regionalism. It's almost now 19 years since AU became a reality. What did it do? In relation to us versus the rest of the world. What I know, and this is very good by the way, if they want number in the Security Council, they will say Kenya will do it. The world listen. But does it apply also to trade? As it's not. The international system, whether it is EU or America, they like bilateral trade, not regional trade. Because they want agriculture, by farmers to get money. This is very important. What about regionalism, some regionalization, ECOWAS, IGAD, and all these organizations? How do they work? I also found very important the mention person connected with the UN reforms. When did they take place? You remember under Kofi Annan and Bhar-el-Ghazal, all that, to Africa. This was the big agenda. Once they're gone, and this makes sense. Then of course we have international trade. How many African countries are effective in the World Trade Organization, which is the regulatory body of international trade? I understand that our country is starting to negotiate. The question is, what is it we are going to do? Because we don't produce, we cannot export. Maybe before the last is the question of the world legal system. World legal system. You know what legal system? All the courts, you know, ICC court, international, that one in the Hague anyway. All these legal systems, where does Africa fall? Because this is where the international politics is done. If they want to decide how trade should and so on. What I find in this book is that it tried very hard to identify the key features of foreign policy formulation. But also it tried to trace the developments of foreign policy, not only across Africa, it put that into the 6 countries, but each country in Africa, if you measure it, is exact for the same. There's no country that says that I have done it. For South Africa, I started, they have infrastructure that are doing good in terms of industry, but we do the selling. They cannot sell it to Europe. They can only sell it to one country in Europe. And you know what that means? So, if you go to Nigeria, what they call the polar system. In 2003, 4, 5, 6, 7, all of you saw what was happening. Ethiopia, South Africa, Senegal, Nigeria, they emerged as our giants because of Al-Sadar, because of Mbeki, and because that guy, I don't know what he said, Nigerian president at the time, and so. But you know what happened? And Rwanda, the gentleman, that system was resisted because it really implied that Africa is now emerging. And I remember all of you who are old enough, but I'm old enough, at that time. If you remember, whenever there is a G8, G20, these people may go. Today, only one country is doing the South Africa. So you can see we are receiving from foreigners. So the developments, I think, Abraham view of evolution in your country. Then you were able to bridge the gaps, which was very important. In other words, you diagnose what happened in the first 100 years, and now what should be done. This was the word revamping become very good. I like that part. And then, of course, you have suggested new ways of doing business. You know, this word business. Because for the first, really business. It's not the niceties and so on. Niceties are used to deal us. But in this, what do you call it, salon, there's a name for it. Where the board of directors is, what do you call it? The board. Those boardrooms in bureaucracy, you really do business. What I have been for. So I think it's the best way forward. So I find the book to be useful for not only a student of international politics or student of foreign policy, but for those who want to achieve 2 objectives. And this is my last point. One, how do you run a country? Foreign policy, as I said, is an extension of domestic politics. You understand this? You can run a country. You don't understand, you can't run a country. Because if you run a country with your own people, the Baraka, you do everything alone, you'll hate each other. But if you look outside, you know that there are people watching us. So that's very important. The last one is how long will it take? How long will it take for Africa to influence the trends of human development? How long will it take for Africa to influence the trends of human development? This is where I think everything we discuss here must go. You cannot see the pictures in Haiti as seen it in the suburb of Juba when there is crisis. Same black people, same everywhere. They look the same. Somebody you go to New York, say, is it something to do with the human race called Africa? Or it has something to do with us not understanding how the world should be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Guy. That is very much appreciated. And I like the points and the puzzles that you have left with us by asking how long will it take for Africa to in the boardrooms, the diplomacy, and all issues around that. I think this is another area that is very critical, and we may need to look into it. Going on to that question, Dr. Juba, but also the current undersecretary in the public service. Looking at all these aspects of foreign policies and having the diplomats out there, can we really apply this to our context in South Sudan? What is your take on this? Thank you.
Thank you very much, my sister and the protocol is observed, the high level. My former boss, Dr. Guy, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs and now the Minister of Presidential Affairs, Dr. Benjamin, my brother. Okay, I will take this book, will take you along the way women do their things. Like if the family is buying the house, they will go and visit the house, the husband and wife. The husband will go straight to the living room. The woman go to the kitchen and the bathroom. She wants to check how good is that kitchen and the bathroom can take her family. So that's how I took this book. I went in and I looked what is the interest, my interest as a South Sudanese in all this mist of diplomacy or the foreign policy. If we look back, since the Nyuon coming to SPLA war, the CPA, the Addis Ababa Agreement, there were not many books written, there were very few. But from 2011, when we surprised the whole world with the referendum of, I say, 99.999999 somewhere. And one day the project told me, how sure I knew it was going to be 9999. I say I'm sure, because I will vote for it. There was a lot of hopes, great expectations, and also the international community were very proud that at least they achieved something. But 2013, when we have the hiccups, we disappointed the international community. We became humanitarian crisis, an international disaster. So, the books that were written from 2013 up to today, you can combine the books which were written, Rwanda, genocide, Somalia war, Liberia war, Sierra Leone, and others combined, just within this short time. So I was saying, Dr. Abraham and the team, especially our brother Wasarra, has done a lot in this book. And a few things that I have picked up from the book, I look at the thematic area that they have captured. There's a lot, but I pick only what I'm interested in. So when you are going to read this book, you will find your own interest also, like what I did for myself. The political governance, they looked at it, which is political system. Economic and management of resources, they looked at it. Socio-economic development, corporate, financial management, and leadership. But what really struck me and really raised my interest was the value-driven policy in the book. Those as the foreign policy priorities. There were 4 areas: diversification of trade, widening market access, development of human resource, which is my very much interest to me, seeking sustainable development, and also market matching the country needs and priorities to the policies. That one was really into my head. What are our needs? I didn't want to bother with Africa. Even though the book was talking about Africa, I look as an African woman and also as an academician. What is my interest? What are the needs of the South Sudanese, translating this book to our own policy? So, they talk about democracy, development, rule of law, human rights, and global peace. And I think Dr. Guy alluded into those areas. A value-driven foreign policy, which is based on linking country domestic concern. All those English in there, I didn't bother about it. Too much word, too much gadgets, but I only concentrate to East African policy or South Sudanese policy. Is it linking domestic concern with the solid international relations? And this is what I was hunting out of the book. And it took me to some of the chapters, especially I look at chapter 3, chapter 5, and the last chapter, and especially the conclusion. So my interest as a South Sudanese, the country moves forward when human resources are developed. And most of the time when we go out as academia into conferences, people talk about developing human resource in Africa. And one of the professors from South Africa, an Indian, who was quantifying how much human resource are needed in Africa. How many doctors, how many engineers, how many, all the professions, how many, especially microbiology, how many, so many, and I think the book alludes to that if we developed more capacity, human resource, then Africa will be able to sit on the table at equal basis. Also, the book referred me to some of, as I was reading these 3 chapters, I was skipping in it this morning. It reminded me of other 2 books I read before by Greg Smith. Why is Africa poor? And it said that Africa is poor because the leaders are busy sending their people to poverty, to diseases, and to mud huts. And I think this book also alludes to that. And I was very proud that you are a young scholar and you really dig into the hearts of the issues of Africa. The other book, which was written also by Greg Smith and Associate, talked of the third revolution, the third African revolution. And it talks about the 21st century challenges. And I think this book is almost relating to that, talking about the challenges of the 21st century. They talk about conflicts, mismanagement of resources, and seeing corruption as a ghost that covering Africa with fear. And that what made a heavy hand on poverty in Africa, and we find a lot of suffering of the population. They allude to that in their book, and I was very much touched my heart as a woman with the climate change we have seen now in South Sudan, and with all the conflicts that are happening in our villages. I wanted to bring this book home to me, not to Africa, but to me as a South Sudanese. Few things that they have raised, and I summarized those things into nation building. If you look at chapter 5, chapter 6, and chapter 7, it tells us what are the tools that will help Africa find its niche. And that is political, peace and security, unity and reconciliation, democracy and good governance. as the tools that will help Africa find itself. The second one is economic, looking at the rural challenges, national resources, looking at empowering businesses, which is improving the trade and production so that we can survive. They talk about energy and power as challenges to the African countries. How do you address those? And they came out very clearly addressing those things. So the good thing, this book is telling you where you can go. You don't just read books somewhere. You just look at the content and you will see governance, policy, framework. Just read that. For those who I know most of South Sudanese, they don't want to read, but I'm giving you the tips for you to read this book. You open the book and look at the chapter, you will see public diplomacy, national capacity. You can pick those things up and just read. The third, which was covered very well as the tool of African survival, is social development. Investing in people, health, education, child mortality rate, clean water, infrastructures, the list can go on. If we do those, we are investing in our people, and especially my background as educationists, we need to really look at educational systems in our country, in South Sudan, leave the other African countries. The example is what Gandhi did with India. They want an industrial India. The product that will come out from education, what type that person will do. And that is, Professor Nyuon is here, we are there in College of Education, is one of the things that we need to do as Africans, as South Sudanese. The philosophy of education, what is it? And what kind of the product we will bring out to be able to use these tools to make Africa a better place. The last one, but it came very, very shallow. You guys didn't get to it. So if you want more women to read, you should add that part. Gender equity. Gender equity is a justice issues and a social change. If we need to change in Africa, we need to empower the youth, the women, and our elderly also need to be catered for, to grace out of the work, the services they have done. I think that part, I was looking for it as coming from public service. I want to see it. People with special needs, these are justice issues and social change. I just want to conclude. The book is very relevant to the present time. And as we have our 5 national universities, I will encourage more, and especially College of Education, the Department of Educational Leadership and Policy Studies should use this book to help us in shaping our educational system. Conclusion, my favorite liberator is Steve Biko. He said, the Western world have given the military might and industrial might to the world. But it's a very big but. The greatest gift which has to come from Africa. and that is giving a human face. If we are really need to talk about the diplomacy, it has to be a diplomacy that gives human face. And as we go through this journey as a country, our needs and our recognition and the recognition of the African face in diplomacy is paramount, and is something that as academicians we need to pursue. Now, Henry Ford, 1923, he said, "I have no patience with the professional charity or with any sort of commercialized humanitarian. The amount of human helplessness is systemized and organized, centralized and professionalized. The heart of it is lost, and it becomes a cold, clumsy thing." Henry Ford, 1923. Is our diplomacy has a human touch, and especially when it comes to situation we have it today in South Sudan. Are we joining any report, or are we making the humanitarian human face, like what Steve Biko said? And I think this is what this book has touched some of those things, and I urge everybody to read it. And instead of playing cards and Christina, please pick up the book under that tree and read it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Julia. I think what she has left us with a message over the weekend is that pick up the book, run with it. No more playing dominoes or what is that? Good. And I do hope that the books will be available for us. So Dr. Julia mentioned something which is very important. She said that the book is very relevant and timely in the current context of South Sudan. But again, she went on alluding to the importance of investing on people in terms of education. But also she said that the country can only move forward when human resources are developed. And this very point is very much in line with what Dr. Guy had also mentioned, that how long will it take for an African country to influence the trends of human development? So these are questions around us wanting to see how we can transform the lives of many people, particularly the vulnerable, which is what Professor Julia also mentioned, the element of gender equality, ensuring that there is inclusivity, bringing in all the people irrespective of their background, but also their sexes, in terms of having the concerns of men and women on board, as well as the children, the youth, or young people, as well as people living with disabilities. So there's an element of leaving no one behind. And the tool has provided, or the book has provided various tools that can help us to see how we can work out around that. And thank you once again for repositioning the book to the domestic arena, where a woman, you see a woman wanting to see the priority at the household level being fulfilled before going outside. Thank you very much. So linking with what Dr. Julia has just said, and what Dr. Guy had also said, I want to go forward and invite Honorable Dr. Benjamin Marial, who was the former Minister of Foreign Affairs, who has a lot of knowledge and experience, and he's a well-seasoned practitioner, if I can put it that way. But also, he's the current Presidential Affairs Minister. Honorable Benjamin, you're well experienced. And all the people who are seated here are waiting to hear from you. Based on your past experience with all those aspects of foreign diplomacy and how these current issues that are happening and what's happened in the past, where can we position this knowledge? And what is it that we were not doing it well, but right now, or going forward, we can put it in the right manner so that we can start running. And that in itself will really encourage us to go into reading this book and put it into practice. Where did we go wrong? What is it that we can do going forward? Welcome, Honorable.
You'll excuse me, I want to remove my jacket because it's a little bit hot, and I beg your pardon if I do that. You don't mind looking at me with justice yourself. First of all, I would like to appreciate greatly the invitation in order to participate in the panel with regards to the revamping African foreign policies in the 21st century. I was happy when Professor Abraham came to me to ask if I could respond to the invitation, which I really accepted. I would also like to recognize our professors here, lecturers, students, postgraduate students who are engaged in this process of coming together and intellectually engage in what they believe as an occasion like this, launching a book which concentrates greatly on the foreign policy in our continent, and especially revamping it. So I warmly recognize your presence and will contribute a bit. I'm sure my fellow citizens know that I've been involved with the foreign policy of this country, and if there are mistakes, I'm sure they are waiting with questions to question me why some of these things did not go as they expected. Thirdly, I'm happy to be here, Professor Abraham, my dear sister Julia. I can see she's moving towards the liberation of women. We disagree, for your information. And I'm happy to have here Dr. John Guy as a participant. I'm happy he's here. Dr. John has been a student in the Middle East, in the heart of the Arab world, where we had the problems of South Sudan and North Sudan regarding all the years since the Nyanya days. And he has studied and wrote a lot of books in Arabic. So his audience was mainly those who could read Arabic. And he did contribute. I'm sure he nearly went into problems in the Arab world when he was writing things which were all pro-South Sudan. When we were happy, in order to have his intellectual input, not from the Arab perspective, but he went also to South Africa, where he got exposed to the African politics as we see. And that's where I met him, doing his PhD in UNISA, the University of South Africa. And as an active member of the movement, I encouraged him that my brother, it is time that we fight for our country, because you can have all the education you need, you can get jobs in London, in South Africa, but if you have no country of your own, then the meaning of your education doesn't exist. I'm glad he accepted to become a real member and got involved, helping me in organizing the capacity training program of our cadres in the SPLM, SPLA. We used to take people from the bushes to expose them, because we could foresee our policy, we could foresee what future we were going to have under the leadership of our late chairman, and our present president as the chief of staff at the time. We knew that our nation was coming, and we had to start from there. So I'm happy you were able to speak today to this intellectual audience. Now, with this book, the time I got it, I was on a mission to New York for the General Assembly of the United Nations. So I thought that I can read it, because it is 13 hours to fly all the way from Dubai to New York, and 5 hours from Nairobi to Dubai. That is about what? 18 hours. And 1.5 hours from here to Nairobi. That is 19 and a half. So I thought, there will be a good time, and I'll go through it and finish it. And I can tell you, I was not able to make use of those 19 hours to go through this book. But I found and screened some of the parts of it so that I can contribute this afternoon or this morning on this great day. Now, the first thing that thrilled me about this book is the title, Revamping African Foreign Policies in the 21st Century. Ingredients, tools, and dynamics. My background in foreign policy has been largely on the foreign policy of non-state actors. The foreign policy for a liberation movement, which is another book by itself completely. How we played our role as a liberation movement to convince both friends and enemies alike to toe our line of foreign policy. And that was the first question I told Abraham. I told Abraham, did you cover the foreign policy by the non-state actors? The liberation struggle foreign policy is a very rich foreign policy that you experience practically. You are actually in the practical field in how you can survive to promote your case and achieve your vision by convincing others. And it is equally foreign policy. And when I look at the word revamp, with Oxford Dictionary, it's very clear. Revamp is to patch up. Like if you have a torn shirt, you bring a piece of cloth and put it there. It's a part of revamp. Revamp is actually to renovate, to repair, to restore. So this book must reflect that vision of African foreign policy. To patch up, to repair, to renovate, to actually restore something which was lost. For example, you can say they revamped the old house. She was talking about a man and a husband, and a man and his wife going to buy, or you want to sell your house. The old house before selling. So you have to do that. You have to revamp it. Put a little like this hall. I was in this hall a long time ago, when Kofi Annan, not Kofi Annan, Moon, Banki Moon came here, and I was given, as a Minister of Regional Cooperation, I was given the opportunity to introduce him. So I remembered my student days, and I made a very detailed research before I put him. And I exposed in this hall, this man, where is he coming from? How he went to school with barefoot and all that, and how he won awards, and he told me, oh Benjamin, now you come and write my biography. How did you know all this? I said, but you are the United Nations Secretary General for the whole world, and we are a part of that world. But this place has been revamped. It looks nice, isn't it? That is the word revamp. Or revamp my old boots. You can put, you know what you put behind the boot, the British, they call it bam, you know. They call it bam. When your tools are gone, you put that, revamping. So this was the first word that interested me. Revamp Africa. Then of course the ingredients, we know what ingredients are. Tools, we know what tools are. Dynamics. Dynamics, I had difficulty with it. That is ingredients, tool, and dynamics. Because dynamics in mechanics, those of you who are engineers, it is kinetics. It is something, you know, which is, that causes motions, mechanics, movement. The dynamics of African foreign policy. So I thought, coming out of Juba University, the professor, South Sudanese, together with Professor Wasarra, may he so rest in peace, I thought this was a great contribution. A great contribution, and I know Ambassador Joram Biswaro is a Pan-Africanist, as you put it. He is a committed Pan-Africanist. I wish he was here. He is a committed Pan-Africanist coming out of the training of former late President Julius Nyerere. He is a student of Nyerere, ideas of Pan-Africanism, and in fact of socialism related within the African context. So I think it means this book can really be of great interest for proper educational purposes and public service purposes. Some of us who are running politics as foreign ministers as well as members of parliament, I'm sure everybody's reading. Everybody can pick it up and you will get a chapter or two that relates to you, the interest that you have. So, Abraham, my initial that I'm comfortable with the title. So what I did was try to go and see where are these areas of revamping, these areas of dynamics, of kinetics and all this, in order to assist me. But I went for what really is he saying about South Sudan? Because the countries that are covered here are of great interest to us in the Republic of South Sudan. Of course, the ingredients he speaks about, I think it's a mixture, a compound of so many things. And so, the book initially was appealing. I think Angelina, my sister Angelina, and my brother Yakani, I'm happy that you don't have time on people, because I saw John was talking for a long time, my sister here talking for a long time, Abraham. So please, I hope I will not be timed. So I think this is so that I can say what I want to say in this audience. So the book is a reflection of those and how relevant it is to our country and relevant to Africa. Now, look at the countries which are covered. South Sudan, Kenya, Ethiopia, Egypt, South Africa, and Nigeria. We have in the Horn of Africa, South Sudan, Kenya, Ethiopia, and Egypt, Ethiopia and Egypt, Horn of Africa, Kenya, South Sudan. We have two characters. One leg is in North Africa, Horn of Africa, and our other leg is in East Africa. So if I classify your country as East Africa or Horn, it works in both ways. We are a joker. You fit us here, you fit us there. And then Egypt, South Africa represents the Southern African states. Then Liberia represents West Africa. So I think the book has covered the whole continent because there is a representation which is reflected in this book that covers this and brings out examples in those countries which would be a sample in the region they come from. So I like that approach. But my own interest was really what he's saying about South Sudan and our region. South Sudan, I want to know about Ethiopia. South Sudan, I want to know about Kenya. I want to know about South Africa because our liberation movement had connection with South Africa, with Egypt in the context of the Arab world. So for us in South Sudan, I think it is appropriate. It is a book you can read as one of your books that can give you that information. Now, when you talk about foreign policy, diplomacy, negotiations, which one is which? I'm sure our professor here has told us about his political science and what it relates to. Now, we know since 1918, public opinion started to move and became concerned about the issue of foreign policy and negotiations. There was a confusion. The people who ran this world, whether it was Britain, whether it was the United States, there was a debate. These countries had become increasingly interested in foreign affairs. That was the beginning of foreign affairs, as it is. Which led, as you know, later on after the Second World War, and people decided to think that they would need the League of Nations, which became the United Nations as we know it today, which is an instrument to prevent war, as it happened in the First World War and the Second World War. Now, this confusion came from indiscriminate use of the word diplomacy. Because some people started to think that diplomacy means foreign policy. And this is not the case. Some people thought, no, foreign policy is negotiations. So there was that confusion. And then in democratic countries, we are aware, the public became interested because they were dragged into war and many other places. And so they began to express their opinion in how international relations was being held, which led to the First and the Second World War, and people became disturbed. So even politicians and those who wanted to be elected into parliament in the democratic countries, the issue of foreign policy became a card, an election card, what your foreign policy would be in the light of the experiences that are given. Where was Africa then? We were what they call the dominions. We were colonized. You know, in the case of the Second World War, the people of South Sudan, for your information, were contributing, driving. The British administration here had to collect a lot of cattle, they were slaughtered, and the meat was dried to be sent to our troops in Italy. Because you know, the Italians who became a part of Germany started to invade Ethiopia. And Ethiopia being an independent country. So you contributed, your people contributed in supporting that process. So we can see the development of that policy, people becoming interested in foreign policies, It started as a result of a bad experience from the First World War, the Second World War, and in the First World War immediately the issue of international relations became an important issue in the state decisions, and that was the start in which countries began to think about having a clear foreign policy, which was the concern of the public of those countries, of those democratic countries, because they didn't want any more wars of which they did not have a say in it. Now, you will tell me, if I'm sure, Professor here and Abraham must be aware where this issue of foreign affairs started from prehistoric times. I think you are all aware of it. In the prehistoric time, was there any foreign policy at all? Yes, there are indications. And somebody was telling us the other day, he said, in the Bible, the first ambassador, the first ambassador who that person was? They say Angel Gabriel actually was the first ambassador because the Almighty God sent him in order to talk to Holy Mary and to give the reports and news. Yes, what was the function of Angel Gabriel, if you look at it? The Almighty gave him, because initially, before the word ambassador even came into use, they used to use what they call heralds. The heralds, they would come here, and I'll point the professor here to see his voice, whether you have got a good voice. Herald. Herald is somebody who, if he sings, the voice comes out clearly. So in the 10th century and other places, they used to have heralds. If you want to send, like Pope Justin II was sending a delegation to see the Serbian Turks. So at that time, in the 10th century, you could imagine that any foreigner was considered to be infectious. So when Justin sent the first ambassador actually, but they used to call him Herald, you must have a good voice so that when you arrive, you will shout, "Your Majesty, I come from King so and so." Your voice. And so they called them Herald. And then the Greeks took over from 5 something. The Greeks started this area of heraldism, and I will read you one of the incidents, which is very interesting, of Hermes. Hermes, you see, our diplomats these days, they are believed to have the intelligence of Hermes. I want to show you Hermes in the Greek sort of antique things. And it's quite interesting. So this issue of foreign policy did not just begin with us as Africans here. You see, let me see where I have it. And it is quite interesting. Now, the Greeks had a lot of gods. The Greeks did not have one god. They had a lot of gods. They had God Hermes. They had Apollo, like Apollo when the United States was sending to the moon. It comes from the Greek Apollo. So now, the god Hermes, it will be remembered, symbolized for the ancient people, the qualities of charm. Hermes was very charming. Of charm, trickery, he was very trickery, and cunning. So you have somebody who is charm, trickery, and cunning. Imagine. This is Hermes. I want you to get this clear. On the very day of his birth, when Hermes was born, on the very day of his birth, he stole 50 head of cattle. The same day he was born. This is a Greek story. Yes, of course it's so. He stole 50 head of cattle from his brother Apollo. He went and sold the cattle from his brother Apollo. Okay? And after stealing them, he went and hidden the cows in the cave. 250 from brother Apollo, went and hidden it. And then he returned and slept calmly in his cradle. He went where his mother was putting, he went and lay there. Okay? Now, the resourcefulness of his God was warmly applauded by Zeus. This is another god. He was very impressed. How could he do this? Stealing 50 at the age of 1 day old, went and stored them in the cave, and went back to his cradle. So, who thereafter employed Hermes upon the most delicate diplomatic missions. This qualified him to be used, to be sent on diplomatic missions. This is a true Greek story, they believe in. Now, including the murder of a scrupulous patron, he became also an envoy for travelers, merchants, and thieves. He became an envoy for this type of people, including thieves. This here means, all right? It was the deception. It was this deception of his that you know Pandora, the first woman, Julia. Pandora, the first woman, got the gift of flattery and sweet voice. Pandora, this is not from me, you women. This is the story. That actually the first woman of your class, they got this flattery and sweetness of voice from Hermes. They are adopted by the first woman. What we know in our religious terms, of course, Eve is our first mother anyway. Pandora this is the Greek story. Now, it was from him that the herald decided the right, the strength, and the machinations. So the heralds who were supposed to be the ambassadors at that time of the ancients believed that Hermes inspired our ambassadors that all over the world that they got it from this fellow, Hermes. This is very unfortunate. You can see he was an envoy of thieves and merchants and flatteries, and that's what diplomacy is. So, we as Africans, when we talk, we are having, like written by Abraham here, the century, 21st century, with 53 or 54 countries. And classified this. Like all diplomacy, like all foreign policy, we begin is, as South Sudanese, what is our national interest? What is our national interest? And it's said by Abraham, actually, foreign policy is a reflection of domestic policy. So my sister Angelina, when you asked me when I was a foreign minister, what I go out there to, or what I used to go out and now go out to say, is what is happening here in my country. If the University of Juba is doing well, I will go and campaign. Say Juba University policies, they have, we need lecturers, we need professors, our pay may not be good enough, but you know, we are a young country, the youngest nation on earth, we need your assistance, give us academicians and all that. Our university is not bad, it's a vibrant university. When they ask me about my economy, I will not lie, but I will not also say the truth because I want to encourage investment to come in. I must say something that will encourage the investors of that country to come in. you know, we were a British colony, and I want to read something that Henry Wharton, a British ambassador, said, and it is quite interesting. You know, in times of James I, it was a British ambassador. I'm sure the British ambassador is here. They call him Sir Henry Wharton at the time of King James I, who expressed the view that an ambassador is an honest man. They used not to have women at that time to be in diplomatic circles, to be sent as an honest man who is sent to lie abroad for the good of his country. That ambassador is supposed to carry the foreign policy. But this British ambassador, Sir Wharton, he was sent to Austria in Augsburg. So when he arrived in Augsburg, he was taken into the reception hall, and there is a book. You see, sometimes they give you a book to write something about your impression when you come into a country. And he just went to write this. Then he said, an ambassador is an honest man who is sent abroad to lie for the good of his country. I'm sorry, ambassador. You see? So he scribbled it. All right? And then the phrase is often quoted, marked as a joke in the album of Augsburg. Until today, if you go to Austria, you will get this statement. Now, what happened after that? One of his colleagues came, the next ambassador who came, and then he was going to write something about, and then he saw this thing. The ambassador wrote this, British ambassador, Sir Wharton. So King James the First was told what his ambassador wrote. So James called the ambassador and he fired him. Then the ambassador said, no, Your Majesty, no, Your Majesty. In fact, it was just a joke. I wrote that thing as a joke. I didn't mean it seriously. Now, this is quoted until today on the ambassadors. Because an ambassador, you know there is, I was saying before, if you are an ambassador, he was an ambassador. Dr. Guy here, he was an ambassador in Turkey. Now, what did they think about the ambassadors who would translate the foreign policy? The ambassador, there are two lies, they must say sometimes. There is the official lie and the true one. So when you go to a place, then they say, okay, what is the ambassador? The ambassadors are actually, they are honest spies. Because what do? They come in your country so that they can report whatever is good or bad to their countries. And encourage their countries how they can deal with this. So I'm mentioning these few examples because they are also ingredients and tools of promoting foreign policy. And there are things which are historically attached to it that you as intellectuals must be able to know. And that's why, coming back to this book, I quoted this, How Diplomacy Started, since prehistoric days, from the Greek times, where they used to have, they used not to call people ambassadors, they used to call them herald. By the strength of their voices, you are appointed to carry a message to another country. In the Greek states, they continued with the same. In 500, 530s, 540s, they were doing the same until 1918, when really the foreign policy took off as an official thing that led on into the League of Nations in 1945, and as we have the foreign policies today. So, Abraham, your book. As I was saying, I think it's one of the first books we are having from our professors or writers or intellectuals in this country. In the way they look at the foreign policy of Africa at large, and in fact include what they would believe to be our own foreign policy. So as we say, our experiences, Sister Angelina, are tremendous. As I said, we started as a non-state act, a liberation movement. And when our liberation started in 1983, the leadership at that time was conscious that we were going to engage and convince others to support what we are fighting for. So initially, in 1984, we had the Zinc Institute of Strategic and Ideological Studies. And most of us who joined the struggle at that time, you had to go to that institute. We were happy because we were provided by the University of Addis Ababa with lecturers and professors who would come to sit near Gambela, and you had to go to that college. I went to that institute. Big hard work. And in that forum, we had to learn how we were going to execute our war diplomatically, how we would approach, what would be our direction. So there was a basis, a directive basis in how we would conduct ourselves. And the question you would ask, how would you be having a foreign policy? Have you a country? And then you ask yourself, well, what is a country? What is a country? Like South Sudan, what is a country? It is a geographical entity with borders. You must have a population there, and you need laws in order to administer it. It is a state. And that's why the non-state actors were later on considered to be serious negotiators, serious, involved in what they are doing within their entity to promote that. And that's our background. Because we are not manufacturers of arms, we have to go and ask somebody to give us arms in the liberation struggle. So if you are a representative, I've been a representative of the movement, an envoy, he has been a representative. They will say, okay, now you go and see Mandela. This is the letter, take Mandela. The AU, which is the champion, has got a liberation desk. It was done because most of the liberation movement, whether it was MPLA, whether it was SPLM, SPLA, whether it was UNITA, whether it was, in Mozambique, Frelimo, all these movements were fighting for their countries. And they had to have a forum. And that's why the Organization of African Unity at the time established a liberation desk, so that they can have a forum where they will conduct their policies and explain the reasons of why they were fighting. So the SPLM had that opportunity, had that recognition. And when they had that recognition, they know exactly what are the laws of the African Union. That the boundaries, the colonial boundaries, must be maintained as they are inherited from the colonial authority. So the Sudan, being an Anglo-Egyptian territory from 1898 to 1956 and became independent in 1956, that colonial territory had to be recognized by the Organization of African Unity at the time, and now the African Union, that their boundaries are sacrosanct. You cannot play around with them. Now, as a liberation struggle, how would you go to the members of African Union to tell them, you help us, we want to liberate our territory? Because you know they have got a law that don't touch the borders, please leave them as they are. And that law, we all know, was made only by 3 countries. It was made by Ethiopia, Egypt, and Sudan. Sudan had a problem of South Sudan. Ethiopia had a problem of Eritrea. So they had to make this law so that it will become impossible for either somebody from South Sudan or Eritrea to talk about trying to become an independent state. They will not get a forum in the African Union. That was the policy, the ingrown policy that existed. So you as a liberation, as a non-state actor, you'll have to design a way how you can break through, how you can convince the Ethiopian government at the time that, we have a case, we are being oppressed by our brothers in northern Sudan because they say they are Arab, they want to have an Islamic state, they want to marginalize us. So if you go there, you go and say you want to separate. What about Ethiopia bound by the laws of keeping African borders? And so you have to be brilliant enough to get the support of the Ethiopian government. You go and say, look, we want to change. We want a new Sudan. We want a new Sudan. Because the present Sudan is discriminatory. We want the equality of the citizens, the freedom of religion. Whether you are Muslim or Christian or African believer, you need that. Then you get a listening ear. It's the task in order to put your case through. And then you can later on explain, yes, even the Sudan was not one country during colonial days. It was North Sudan and South Sudan. That you can explain later. But now you need the support. You need the comfort of the African Union to accommodate you. Because one of the members, which was the sitting government in Khartoum, can tell you people, you guys, what are you doing? You want to break up my country? Look at what the AU says. But once that is not on the card, you will be able to break it. So, foreign policy of any entity which is recognized as it is will always have a policy. Will always have a policy. And that's why the policies of the non-state actors, as reflected by the ANC and all these other countries, they were able to break through because they had adequate policies that convinced those who supported them to promote that case. So, when I went through some of the charts, I was interested in Ethiopia, Your Excellency, Mr. Ambassador, because of our relation between South Sudan, and I was really thrilled when I read the chapter on Ethiopia. Because if you look at Ethiopia, Ethiopia is the only African country which was not colonized, like the rest of us. They were never colonized. Until when the Italians tried in 1943 and the rest, they only ruled in Ethiopia only for 5 years. And Emperor Haile Selassie I had to fight hard, went to the UN system and said his country was invaded. From Emperor Kawakos II, his emphasis was on the issue of religion, Christianity and Islam, and how to maintain Christian Ethiopia from the rest. When you come to Johannes the IV, which actually worked for the United Christian Ethiopia, that succeeded, your Menelik II, which I saw in your book here, European Powers. This was the time when they were interacting with the Italian. Of course, you remember during the Second World War when Italy decided to join Germany in order to invade the rest of Europe. And then you have Haile Selassie I, who actually started to initiate the modern Ethiopia. And then came the Deng regime. Our history, our diplomatic and our foreign policies begin since the time of Haile Selassie I. As you all know, we ended up with that Addis Ababa peace agreement that produced an autonomous government of the Republic, or government of South Sudan. After Selassie was thrown, we had the Deng and Marial, who came a socialist orientation process with a lot of international ramifications. As you know, the Cold War, you had support of Russia, China, and the rest of them. The West was not comfortable with that, but he dragged it. We came in, and you know what happened with the SPLM and SPLA. The first place we went to was Ethiopia, and we had a manifesto which was a little too much leftist and fell into the hands of the Americans, the hands of CIA. And they came, they questioned us: "Are you guys? Are you red? Are you communists?" We had to deny it. We said we are not communists, but we are socialists. There is African socialism. We didn't explain, Professor, what African socialism is, but this was the best thing we could go to. We said, look, we are African socialists, like Marial, like Kenya, Wani, and all the rest of it. That was important because we didn't want to have enemies. We didn't want to have a country like America being uncomfortable with us or the Western world. We needed that support because we had a lot of support from the civil societies in Europe and in America and in other places where the churches, the NGOs and the rest who were supporting our cause. Of course, they will not support you if you are a communist, definitely. And even internally, our people, most of them were not of that caliber. So it is how you design your policy as a non-state head. So when Derek was there, of course we wanted to live in Sudan, and I'm sure we thank the people of Ethiopia. They supported us tremendously. After Mengistu left, then came the EPRDF. Again, we had a good policy. We have to redesign our policy to win the confidence of the Ethiopian government. We needed that because it promoted our own cause, which I read in this book. After EPRDF left, we ended up with when Mali's the Prime Minister died, we had Marial who took over, and Marial now handed it over to Abiy Ahmed. And our relations with Ethiopia are strategic, just as much as they are strategic with Egypt. So if our president and the leader visit Ethiopia, we are also entitled to visit Egypt because we want peace, policies of peace in the region. You know, the issue of dam, the issue of water, all these things are coming up. The impact on your policy, in what you decide, we should be reflected in this. Today, as you were saying before, the whole of 6 states in South Sudan are flooded. That's something that has never happened for the last 60 years. This was the biggest floods we have ever had. It will channel what will be our policy on this issue of flooding with regards to our neighbors. Egypt can be telling us, okay, you are flooding yourself now. If we had a canal, maybe this water would go into the canal, for example. It's an issue. So, although we didn't want to talk about it, we can begin to talk about it. Not that we are convinced that it is the solution, but we can begin, I see. Because we will be thinking our own aspects, including you here, the engineers who are here in the University of Juba, must be concerned what to do about the problem of water in the Republic of South Sudan. Problem of water and the problem of dry land. This is an issue which an academic institution is supposed to take care of, because it has been a problem. If you go to countries like South Korea, you will see that they are now building 25 new cities. And these cities, some of these cities are being built on a land which is claimed from the sea. Now, if you have more water, I think we can get a solution. But that solution is not by politicians, it is by academicians like you. It's a matter of concern. I think the only criticism you can put on the government definitely is that do we have the resources? Do we have the instruments for us to do such a function as an academic institution, an environment of academic that is provided with facilities that are required to enhance research, to enhance all these issues. These also impact on the foreign policy of the country. Our interest with our neighbors, with Kenya. What is our foreign policy with the Kenyan government? They have been helping us to bring peace to the Republic of South Sudan. That's where we negotiated the independence of this country. They have been tremendously helpful to us. So we must also have a specific policy of solidarity with what they are doing with us together. The same thing with Uganda. Now you have seen our policies with Sudan have changed. Our policies at present, we were fighting each other. Now we are saying we are coming to help you to have peace, to have stability. And it is working, it's recognized. Our president now is engaged, trying to talk to them. Please, fighting each other does not pay. It's bad because we experience it. And now you can see the tremendous change from being enemies before. We are now trying to work together to bring peace to Sudan. We're trying our best to bring peace between Sudan and Ethiopia. We're trying the best to bring, to initiate, to encourage Egypt and Ethiopia to try and settle this issue of the Renaissance Dam through dialogue, through technical sort of engagement. Now, you in your country, is an agenda that comes to you. It comes to you. It's a part of a foreign policy of the country. What is our relations with the United States? We had got a good relations before. Now we have got a few areas where that needs to be corrected. We know as a young state, your foreign policy cannot get engaged. We are at the stage of peace. Our foreign policy is dominated by peace, economic development, harmony, cultural development, education to our children, health. Our policy is clear. It's a reflection of what we are getting inside here. And that's why people say domestic policy actually determines the foreign policy of a country. So your book has covered a lot of areas. Of course, the issue of Egypt, that you have covered here, I went through, then Ethiopia, as I said, because I was interested in the regional framework and what you have said about South Sudan. And I thought the issue of South Sudan, you should have covered the non-state foreign policy that happened during our liberation struggle. It's very important for our academicians to cover that, because it was not an easy road. It wasn't an easy road at all. How we managed to convince the rest of Africa to support us, because we were not being supported by either Russia or China or even in the West. We sought our support, the strength of our support was within Africa, within the African countries, with the African laws of the African Union. But they still felt that the issue of South Sudan was an issue to be considered as a strategy. And so covering this stage will actually impact with the rest of the foreign policy that we are now having as an independent state. And because of the success of us as a non-state, until we conducted the referendum and we became recognized as a country in 2011, that foreign policy that we had during the liberation days coming to the interim period until the referendum, there is the importance that there will be a fundamental change in our foreign policy. Because we are now a state in terms of international relations, in terms of international politics, in terms of the regional politics, and in the history of the United Nations. We are the first country, the first member of the UN who became a member within 3 days of its independence. 3 days. You see, these things must be said. Within 3 days, we became number 163 member of the United Nations. You have to find out what actually inspired that war. What was the reason that thing took place? And I think all of you are aware of it. Khartoum was threatening. And when President Bashir went to Egypt and told Mubarak, you see, if South is going to vote independent, I will have to force unity. Mubarak told him, no, Bashir, you cannot do that. Let the people of South decide what they want. Because if you think you are going to force unity, you have been fighting all these years, you didn't do it. It would not be a good idea. The rest of the international community were knowledgeable. Britain, United States, they were saying now if the South is going to vote as an independent state, then there is a possibility that the government of the Sudan will invade the territory. And we had armies, the United Nations mission in Sudan, which was in Khartoum, headquarters in Khartoum, and because we foresaw that before a referendum, we discussed with the United Nations that look, we would want armies to be in South Sudan soon after independence. We did that because we thought that if we become independent and the United Nations mission of South Sudan here is here and Khartoum tries to invade us, then the international community will be involved. That was the reason. So you now, people, don't blame us. Say, why did we bring UN here? UN, we brought them here because it was a calculation on our part. Now, the little problems we have with them now, I think it is our duty, our foreign policy will have to work hard to smoothen out those few problems which are connected with the United Nations. But we should know the reason why we encourage. Because you know the history of UN. In Congo, they were there since 1960. Did they leave? 1960, what is this year? 2021. And we can give you more examples. And that's why there was this idea, the South Sudanese are fighting among themselves, it is better to bring the United Nations administration to administer them, and all these type of stories by the opposition, including some of the senior members of the SPLM who defected already, now advocating that we better have a UN coming and to run the administration. When we are fighting our ancestors and all of us fighting all these years that we want to be people of our own. So your policy must change. And that's what you define, Abraham, dynamics. Talk about the dynamics of the type of policy the African countries. As for the continent, you know that Africa has already set its vision very clear, Agenda 2063. And I hope some of you have read what because some of us will not be here. Nearly all of us, isn't it? In 2063. 2063. And you see what the AU has put at the type of Africa they want to see in 2063. The vision. And it is for all African countries to work towards that, which is a function for us to do now and determine our foreign policy. I have also observed in your book here, I think, as I said, it's a good book that we politicians need to read, academicians, students, as well as members of parliament, those who engage in public policies. I think it is a good book, I must say. If I have a bit of South Sudanese pound and Galena, I think I will buy one. Because even for reading, for your own information, stimulating your thinking, knowing about the continent and the rest, I think it is a book, as Julia said, Professor Julia said before, that it is something she can buy because of the substance in it. So what I can say is that South Sudan has come from very far. And it has not come from very far for nothing. It has come from very far with ideas and thinking that brought us to where we are today. It has not just come as a dramatic, almighty decision. You got it. We have come here because it has been thought through from our ancestors. Imagine what our people was. Now they have come. You see, that's why I have 5 minutes. Okay. You see, we have come from very far for this nation to be what it is. And you must think backwards. Don't think forward and don't think now. You must equally think backward. How our ancestors could manage when the whole world was struggling to divide up this world. And we survived through it. We survived through it. Our ancestors, what they did. Since the Turco-Egyptian invasion of 1821 to 1860, nearly 60 years of Turco-Egyptian invasion of this country. Now you show me one symbol in this country which will tell you that the Turks were here. Show me one Jama, one big, you know how the Turks were when they threw out the Christians in what do you call it? Yeah. But here, do you see anything by Turkish, by the Egyptian? But they stayed here for 60 years. The only thing they could take is our people, the slaves. The only thing they could take economically were the tasks that they took, and the human beings. The ivory. That's why they took the white gold and the black gold. The black gold are your ancestors who were taken. And wherever they were taken, they actually survived. They survived. The Turks left in 1860s. And then comes in the rest of the people until 1898, when the British, the Anglo-Egyptian, took over this country. Our people were still there with their cultures, with their traditions, their way of life. The Christian churches succeeded because their approach was peaceful approach. And they explained the concept. And that's why the Christianity today is growing faster in South Sudan more than anywhere in the whole world. You know that. How many bishops do you have in this university? Or you go to church to see the bishop or to see the choir people. If you go in the matatu, the main bus, you see many bishops. We have the highest number of bishops, by the way. We are number one in the number of, I know the number of Anglican church in the hierarchy. I think South Sudan is number 3. The population there. That grew because of peaceful approach. Also the concept of our people about religion. So I think we have policies for us to survive in this rough world. So why can't we survive from now on? Although we are killing ourselves, which is senseless, I think we will recover. We will recover because you know United States, Abraham Lincoln and General George Washington, when they fought the British to get them out of America, they became independent, and within 2 years, they started killing themselves. And this is what we told our friends in America. We said, yes, it is wrong for us that we are fighting, but it took you 2 years and you were killing yourself. Us, we took 3 years. Us, but your 2 years, you were killing 50,000 a day. But where is America today? America today is the strongest nation on earth, and they have killed themselves. Okay, we have killed ourselves within 3 years, you within 2 years. We may not become strong like America, but I bet we shall come out of what has happened. And that is the vision that we carry. And that's writing books like this, they come out and they're made available in University of California, University of Washington, University of Kenya, University of Johannesburg, and everywhere else. Will begin to reflect the thinking that you have, and that you are looking ahead the 21st century. You are not looking simply backwards, you are looking here. So to conclude, because 5 minutes are finished, I wish I could talk more, but my 5 minutes is over. My message really, I would congratulate you for writing this book with your colleagues. It's a wonderful book. It's educating us, those of us who are involved. By the way, I'm still reading until today. Only I have not come here to sit and listen, but I read my book. Because reading, as Julia was saying, we need to change the culture of our people. Drinking tea under the tree and gossiping. They should be reading a book, Tale of Two Cities, seeing the French Revolution, to inspire them, things like that. So, it's a wonderful book, and I congratulate our university for producing these very industrious lecturers and professors under difficult conditions. My brother, I know the conditions you people at the university are going through. But for your information, you see, our pound has strengthened against the dollar by 30%. So just be patient. We will move forward. We will move forward. It is not going to be a wait. Otherwise, I thank you for inviting me.
Wow. Honorable, I just felt that we had a prophet prophesying for our nation once more. So I was actually seated there enjoying, and one of the things that I picked from your speech is that we will recover. And I see a new South Sudan. And I'm actually taking this as a prophecy that one day it shall be well. It shall be well with South Sudan. Let us all clap for a mighty man of God. One thing I'm taking also is that there is a direct linkage between the domestic policies we have with the foreign policies. But again, we need to reflect on where we came from, but also understanding how our ancestors had actually gone through to where we are today, and find ways by which we can also come out of it. But again, I also hear the element of us cleaning our houses, cleaning our home, revising our policies, making our house in order so that we can be appropriated or fitting into the foreign context. And that is the way moving forward. I also see an opportunity that we are now in the transitional period where most of the laws and the policies will be reviewed, and I think this is an opportunity. And there's also a call on our side as academia, but also practitioners to really see what is it that we can do on our part that can also inform those who are seated at the policy-making arena to see how we can be able to revise and review a number of policies. Thank you very much for those wonderful and wise remarks that you have made. And I do say that I think moving forward, we have a lot of lessons to learn. And when times allow in future, we will maybe organize another event of which we'll be able to invite you to come and speak more to us. Thank you, Honorable. Moving forward, because our time is much spent, we had wanted to invite very brief 2 comments, but I don't know whether we will be able to have very brief comments. 2. If you go beyond half a second, I will take the microphone from you. If there's a very, very burning question or comment that you want to put forward, I will invite it. And thereafter, we'll move forward in terms of launching our book, and then we'll close. So do we have anyone who wants to say that, oh, this one I cannot go home unless I ask these questions? Right, so can I see your hands? How many are you? Oh, I do have 4 or 5. Wow, how do I start? The microphone. Who has it? Yeah, please go around. I am asking you, please be very precise.
Yes. I'm going to say this thing.
That is that I welcome this book as one of the additional books that are coming out of our staff, our academic staff, and therefore we welcome this. We want more books so that even the ambassadors who are here know that we have the mind that will make them sooner or later also ask for resources, ask for experts from South Sudan to go and solve their problems, because it has been one way only. And some of them forgetting that some of us spent 7 years in Kenya developing Kenyans. I think they need to come also to pay for the work that we did. Thank you very much.
Yes, this side.
Thank you very much. I'm Joram, PhD student at the Department of Political Science. I think the title is timely, and in fact, given the title and the fact that a number of African countries do not really have one foreign policy. It has African countries have over 50, let me say, for 54 foreign policies. But the reality is that our policies in Africa do not really impact at the international level. Why? Because when we see how there are reasons, of course, economic dependence. One of them is another one is historical or colonial legacies, and of course, perennial conflict that we have. These do not have impact, do not really impact on international politics. So my question is, the title, as I said, is timely, but my question to the authors is, what policies, what revamping that we are doing, the policies that we are trying to do. So my question is, as I'm going to repeat, that the revamp that we make now, what impact will it create at the international arena?
Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Yes, this side.
Thank you very much. My name is Isaac Wasarra. My question, first of all, to begin with, the policy is good. Making policy is good. One thing which I picked from the discussants, especially Dr. Julia, they say we have to look more education system in the country. That's very good. And we heard also that human resource has to be developed. That's very nice. But the other thing which I want to heard very well about, because I take this opportunity to say this, because also the Minister in the Presidential Affairs is here. My background is in agriculture. So we have policies of agriculture, and agriculture is taken to be the backbone of this country. But without resources, with good policies, how can we move forward? Like a university like this one, without the academicians are here, they will testify. The social studies or social research is very good. We do to lab labs. But in such a situation where you want to do experiments on agricultural things to produce, we don't have the labs, even to test a simple test of the soil, even the crops, to see what diseases are affecting our things. And with good policies, how can we implement this without resources? That's the question. public service, the minister, presidential affairs, to all specialists in education. Policy is good, but we need the resources to take forward what we want to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I said 3 questions only. Now, 2 more. Okay. This side and then that side, and then I will close. Please put down your questions on a piece of paper. Just send them to Abraham. I apologize for that.
Thank you very much, Father Dr. Abraham. I appreciate the title of the book, and I have read from your presentation that is very try to cover the gap. I have only 2 questions, one to you and one to Dr. Marial. Why do you think that this sample from East, South, West, and North Africa, these countries you're choosing, are a representative of African policy? 2, a question to Dr. Marial. You said as an ambassador always, there are 2 lies that you can make. There is the official and the true lie. Would you please clarify to me what you mean by the two? Thank you.
The last one, that side. Wani? Sorry, Wani?
Peter Gumbo, School of Business, PhD candidate.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity given to me. Victor Macron, professional, but I'm a teacher. I'm not a politician. But I want to ask. Now, Victor Benjamin is from basic sciences. And then we have seen now he has become as like a politician who is from social sciences. Now, what are the policies that led to these basic sciences? Now, if you have seen education, in the country, actually people are not considering basic sciences. What are the policies that led to this? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to give the panelists 1 minute each. Yes, I've seen a lady asking, so I will just do a discriminatory practice. A lady, please go ahead.
I would like to take the opportunity.
Your name?
My name is Gloria Gune. I am a practitioner of diplomacy. However, I'm speaking here today within my own capacity. I'm not here representing the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. At the onset, I would like to thank the distinguished panelists for their eloquent discussions and presentation points that they have raised. And also, I would like to welcome the book. It is very informative. It is an important contribution towards the foreign policy aspects of South Sudan and our region and the continent at large. I would like to request that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation could perhaps also have some copies within our library for further reflection and what are some of the ways forward. In that regard, I would like to make a comment regarding Professor Dr. Joram's presentation on the ideological basis of foreign policy in regards to the colonialism aspect and political systems of government. There is an important need for us, perhaps as a continent, to further reflect on the structures of government in place and to look at it also within the angles of our traditional customs and what were in place previously before the colonialists made an impact in Africa in general, and in particular within the South Sudan. The political system needs to be further reflected within the concepts of discussions on issues of federalism and presidential systems of government, the power sharing current arrangements, what exactly is the gap within the current power sharing arrangement in particular that needs to be further reflected as the government. And in that regard, I also like to thank the Excellency Presidential Advisor for the remarks concerning the need to further reflect on non-state actors, because it's not easy to discuss foreign policy without reflecting on our roots and our existence as a people. We need to look at the non-state actors, the liberation movement, of where we're coming from, and how far we can further reshape that within the current ingredients, tools, and dynamics of foreign policy making. I also would like to thank Honorable Dr. Julia Deng. It's important that you raise the concern of gender. Currently within the African foreign policy, women are shaping and contributing within the dynamics of foreign policy. And it's important that we look into that, especially when we discuss the issues of peace and security, which is paramount within the Agenda 2063, African Union declarations, and what needs to be put into consideration. In that view, my last comment is that we cannot discuss the issue of non-state actors, limiting it only to the perspectives of the liberation movements. We also need to look at the rise and impact of our civil society. I believe they are also impacting foreign policy, they are impacting our domestic politics. And this is something that we need to further reflect on as the government and what are going to be the way forward. I thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. I'm going to give the panelists 1 minute, just 1 minute. Thank you.
Thank you, Angelina. I would like to, I know we have a mistake, I would like to comment only on what Isaac said regarding the system of the country, and Gloria with regard to community state versus country state. Let me try to bring it home. I want us to be clear about this. South Sudan for 60 years has been in a project called state formation. We wanted to form a state in Sudan. We failed. The failure is that we have a state called South Sudan, the country of that. We failed. The formation of state process means that you agree on all aspects of the state. One, who are you, your identity. Number two, what type of political system you want to establish. What resources you have that you can share, and the risk can go. We failed on that. I want us to understand this. The period between 1955 up to today, we transform ourselves as South Sudanese into what was called Anyanya 1, called Samuel Nene. We came in 72, we tried to shake and demanded these people when the project work, didn't work. 1975, a group of us left, they formed Anyanya 2, they waited, 82, nothing happened. 83, these guys are not serious, we left. 2005 we came, and then we put our 2 conditions. Yes, we either go or we unite, but make it attractive. So we are a project. The Republic of South Sudan, as we speak, is a project in a making called state building. So we are now in the state, formation stage is called. Now we are in the state building. State building needs institutions of the state. We don't have the institution of the state. The party which was dominant, which we belong, I don't know, my brother, the SPLM, is the dominant party. The other parties are weak. So, when you are a dominant party, other parties, they make your life difficult. When they make your life difficult, what happens? You lose the central authority. You move away from the party to government. When you go to the government, people accuse you of dominating. What did we do? We revert back to our tribes. Because this only one will make us work. When you go to your tribes, the civil war is imminent. But we saw it must happen. Now we divided the power, which I should have had into small little power. None of us can go to TV now and say, I have the solution. Nobody. So the solution, all of us come together and sit. Now we are sitting and we are asking ourselves, what kind of state we want to get? This is the process. It will take us about 10 to 15 years to stabilize. But it doesn't mean that you wait for 15 years. It's from now. We are in the state of no war, no peace. Why? Because we tested that tribes do not work. It's a fact. It's not a fiction. So now we are moving slowly to ask ourselves a question. What does it mean to build a state? It means you have to have institutions. What is the institution? It means it's not enough for you to be a minister of presidential affairs. You must actually have the ministry of presidential affairs. You must have a minister of education. So that when you go to that ministry, you reflect yourself that, oh, this is mine. But if you go there and find all of them full of one community or one region, then you say, there's something wrong. So we are a project that is becoming mature. So all this war and so on are inevitable because we didn't have a central point which put us together. Now the central point has come. The Nyuon and the Deng, they realize that they can't make it to Uganda, even if they use the government resources. So they must say, oh, the other tribes are also coming in. This is how it works. It's a pure science. It's not politics. It must happen like that. The luck we have is we are in the 21st century. Any gun you have, shoot, Washington will cry, Kenya will cry, another will cry. That's the difference. And so we are lucky. But if we were to begin like America last time, as we were saying, it was tough. But now we kill ourselves by 400,000. The whole world is saying stop it. That's why they're here. Because our guns are thrown out. So your question about the state glory, about the state systems, and what type of system, now we are going to ask it. We don't have choice. Anyone who tells you that they have choice is lying. We simply must build a country. And not because we like to build it. The nature of our conflict now has reached a state where we must build state institutions. And once you build that state institution, the next question would be, who are you? Then you will say, I'm socialist. You will not say, I'm not Equatorial or what. You will not say that. God bless you. This man.
Thank you.
1 minute. I will obey. Well, it is good that most of you were trying to respond. That shows the importance of the book itself, that it has stimulated some of your questions. I must congratulate our emeritus, our great professor, Taban Marial. By the way, Taban had written and made a lot of impact and influence in the East African literature. I think it's good for you, Professor, to be there. I have read a lot of your stories when I was a student, and I used to give examples. So keep on what you are doing. You have a legacy in this country. And one is happy to see you this afternoon sitting there. Because you have done your part, you have written, you have talked about what our cultures are and what our literature should reflect. So thank you for blessing this book. Actually, Abraham should actually put it in his book. Even Professor Taban said the book was good. Now, younger African policy, yes, there are 24 countries, But that's why you have the African Union, so that the policies, the foreign policies of Africa can be unified. Because you know, among the 54 countries, there are the French-speaking, you see, and the Anglo-speaking, and a few Portuguese and Spanish-speaking. Now, that's how we are divided, and when we sit there, when there is a problem to be discussed, the Francophone, you know, the French-speaking countries, they are very well organized. They will go and sit, and the father, you know, France, is always there. He's ready to give an advice, you know. So they come all the time united. But we, the Anglophone, we are at each other's neck. So when something is put to the board, it is the French position that wins. You see, it's a colonial background. That's why the African Union is trying its best for us to have a single foreign policy for the whole continent and for the interests of the continent. And that's why you have Agenda 2063, which has been worked out so that every African country can follow that process. On the issue raised by Isaac, I agree with you absolutely. In fact, the resources that we have need to be put into agriculture. Look at this country, agriculture. There's no place like it. You know, the arable land, those of you who are studying geography, the arable land in the whole world, the biggest arable land is in Africa. It's not even in Asia or America. The biggest arable land where you can cultivate issues is in Africa. Now, when you come to Africa, before we divided between North and South, the biggest country, the biggest land was Sudan. And in this Sudan, by the way, the greater part of the north has got its desert. The real green land is in South Sudan. So you can say, in fact, we have the largest arable land that can not only feed us alone, but even the continent. So it should be an intentional policy. And that's why we have been arguing all the time in the cabinet that more resources should be given to agriculture, more resources should be given to our institutions, the universities. Because it is there that the think tank and the proper plans come out. And then the state can adopt those and then you can proceed. So I am with you with that, and your criticism is in place, but I'm your student also with regards to that. Now, the social research is more because we were doing more politics. That's why, you know, Marco, you should know that we had to do social sciences more because for the political struggles we have been in. You see, but when you become a guerrilla fighting for your land, you study everything, not only social sciences, but even how to make a bomb. When you are, for you as a mathematician, you know, you are exposed to so many ideas because it is the survival of the fittest. You must survive your environment. So I hope, as was said by Isaac, that the issue of agriculture, we should all be really thinking seriously about it. Because each one of us here can have a piece of land in this country. You grow your products. You can divide it. There will be no shortage. Like when you go to Kenya now, Kenya, there are already 59 million. And they have not enough land for those people. Where do you think they will go? They will have to come northwards, isn't it? So we must think ahead. Now we are members of the East African community. You must realize that. We are going to be a population of nearly 200 million. Now South Sudan has a lot of resources. Now, so with us, our resources have now a market. If we develop them through your technology, through your knowledge, we develop these resources, we have a market ready. Because 13 million of us cannot consume these resources. You need a market. So don't feel uncomfortable. If you get a Kenyan here, Ugandan here, this is our market for the future. You develop these resources, they go to the East African market, the Horn of African market. So our foreign policy, economic policy, and how we develop our economies must look at that. So in the long term, we were being criticized. Why did you join the East African? By some of the professors here. They came to my office. Because I was the signatory of the agreement. I was delegated by the government as a co-chair with regard to negotiating our entry to the East African market. But it was studied. We didn't do it out of the blue. It was not a married thing. No. We studied it and we have to find out what will be our benefit, what is our present situation. We have a few disadvantages. But in the long term, it was good for us. We are in a bigger market. So I agree with you on the issue of agriculture. Peter, you asked what is the difference between the official land and the true land. You know, Peter, even if you are appointed now as an ambassador, you are an honorable man. Let us agree, because an ambassador, Ramadan, you are here, you don't appoint a group to be your ambassador. It's an honorable man. And an honorable man, you see, you are not supposed to tell a lie. You always speak with truth. But now when you are an ambassador, but you were first an honorable man, okay? There is private morality, your morality as a private person, and there is public morality. There is private morality that you do as an individual person, how you want to do things. But there is also public morality. Public morality is judged by these people, that type of person, what is he? His behavior. You know, President Trump was being attacked, that he had a lot of women, and that is public morality. But he didn't give a damn about that. He was concentrating much more on his private morality. So with your private morality, as an individual, an honorable man, it is really very uncomfortable to tell a lie, isn't it? You wouldn't do that. But when it comes, for example, there is the war, but like the war we had with the Khartoum, over the village. You would tell me, yes, you would expect us as South Sudan to go out and tell the international community, no, maybe we started, we didn't start the war, it's this guy who started it, or what? You'll avoid that, isn't it? You'll not talk who started the war. But what we'll talk about is that the place is ours. This is our land. This is our country. So we are here because it is our country. But if the UN is asking me, it is you people who started the war, I said, no, we didn't start no war. We are peaceful people. We have been there, but the land is ours. Now, this is official, but also it is comfortable. It is comfortable. You see, that is the difference. It is comfortable. You can manage it. You can manage it without anything. So, and you know the lie itself is divided. I think there are English professors here. There is a white lie, and there is lying through the teeth. You are smiling, and what you are saying, you know it is a lie. That is, you are lying through the teeth. You see, white lie is acceptable. But if you are lying through the teeth, and that's what you avoid. You avoid those, that's why we call it the diplomacy official lie. You don't want to say whether it is white or lying through the teeth. You got my point? Yeah, so sometimes. And are you married? Yes. Yeah. Now, if you are married and you went with your old friends, when you were students, and you met those girls, you used to, go to the parties, and then you go and maybe you don't really return a bit of wine, and you started to misbehave, and somebody was there, one of the ladies knows your wife, and he saw you doing very funny things, okay? Then she rings your wife, you know what your husband is doing? He's flirting around with women and he's doing this. So the wife will be waiting for you, not even going to bed. As soon as you come in, he said, you were in a party, isn't it? Then you say, no, I've never been in any party. But then you say, no, you were in a party. So there are times you can lie for a specific reason. So the official lie is a lie that you can do as an honorable man, trusted, who will always say the truth as an ambassador, but for the sake of your country, you must defend it. That is the difference. Finally, no, madam, I really like it. I'm glad for we have diplomats like you. It is, and I think Professor John has already answered it. The foreign policy issues, ideological aspect. As I told you, when we were a non-state actor, we had an institute of ideology and strategic studies, and this was to prepare our representatives and those who went out. And that was the good thinking of Dr. John that he did that. So you were prepared. So even when we were there as rebel diplomats, we were very knowledgeable. And that's why we defeated Sudan. We defeated them internationally. As we were respected everywhere. I remember when Dr. John was visiting Southern Africa, he was getting red carpet everywhere. With the convoys and salute. And this is a rebel. So Sudan was protesting left and right. When he went to Tanzania, the home of Julius Nyerere, from the airport, which is nearly how many kilometers, it was lying with the police and siren and what have you, which ended up in the University of Dar es Salaam, where he gave a lecture. It reflected the success of diplomacy by rebels. These are not state actors. So really, where you came from, don't forget it. You must bring that and improve on it in the new situation we are in. So the human aspect was always there in our approach, and I think it brought us this country. That's why, although we have problems now, then we should strive to correct our problems. Thank you for 1 minute.
Thank you for 10 minutes.
Thank you very much. I wanted to just make a comment which was made by our former President Nimeri, in terms of agriculture or resources in South Sudan. What he said, you know, South Sudan, anything can grow in it. Even if you get a human bone and you plant it here in South Sudan, it can grow. So that's where we are. So I think we are all together, and we are all, the resources that are there, I think if they are managed well, there are many areas that we can develop and be able to pick up South Sudan. Thank you.
I'm not going to talk again. We have sit here for a while, and we are coming only to launch the book. Some of the questions that have been asked here that mostly has been responded to, and mostly Peter Dumbo, we just took the 4 corners of Africa, north, south, and west, for us to get the representation. I am going to call here the 2 ambassadors who are here to come in front, but I will call you shortly. What I'm going to do, I'm going to sign 1 book, and I'm going to present it to Honorable Dr. Benjamin to present it to our ambassadors who are here. And in that also, I would like to call mostly some of the professors from the University of Juba here to come in front here, because we as authors and the publisher have decided to donate 5 books to the University of Juba to begin with, and that one I think will be represented by this one. We had also decided that the presidency should be able to get this book. So the president plus the 5 vice presidents are going to get each copy each, and also the parliament is also supposed, the lower house, which is the Council of States, and the upper house, which is the National the National Assembly. So this means some of this, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So in this case now, we are donating 15 books with the author and all these things, which is a good number that will make other people to be able to do this. The book is on Amazon. It is available online. Amazon US, Amazon Australia, Amazon is in UK, and currently the book is costing between $50 to $250 online. Based on the soft copy, is between $50 to $80, and this one is between $100 to $250. This hardcover. Okay, so so here, if you are going to be in South Sudan, you get a copy. The hard copy hardcover will go for $100, and this one will go for $50 or its equivalent in SSP. I would like to give only an emphasis to one thing. You know, every writing that people always do, there is a part that I give myself, what we call the PAM. And this is maybe because my colleagues are not there, but that is the only thing that has come out. We believe that that is what Abraham wrote. If you look at page, this is page 15, there is a picture there. There's a picture on that thing, there's a drawing. I call that PAM, Foreign Policy Analysis Model, that is supposed to be used on how you need to understand what are the issues, the variables and the tools that are used mostly when you want to understand any foreign policy in Africa. This is a conceptual framework which I believe with time, if it is tested and other people use it, it will become one of the theories in the near future. So we believe with the help of people like Professor Tabano and other academics who are very senior here, that we should be able to contribute to the body of knowledge, not only in Africa here, but across the world. Therefore, let me take this opportunity by signing a copy, Honorable Ambassador of Ethiopia. So I'm going to present the first book because knowing the history between South Sudan and Ethiopia, and we believe that Ethiopia is the heart of the South Sudan, and that is why the president said that Ethiopia is our motherland. And one of the very important things, when the Prime Minister was sworn in recently, last week, I was interviewed by Ethiopian TV, and I showed that to the ambassador. This showed the level of how these people are able to understand that as South Sudanese, we could also be able to interview, to contribute to the issues that are within the region. So, Honorable, let me hand this over to you.
Yeah, you come up.
I think they can.
On your behalf, it's a great honor for me to present this wonderful book, basically on African foreign policy, to our solidarity friends, Excellency the Ambassador of Ethiopia. I say I'm greatly honored on your behalf that I hand this book to His Excellency the Ethiopian Ambassador to the Republic of South Sudan. I think it shows our closeness in the years we have been together. They have hosted us as refugees, they educated our children, they gave us aid, foreign help, and that helped us to attain our country today, despite the different leadership, from Haile Selassie to Mengistu Haile Marial, to Mali Zenawi, to Desalegn, and now to Abiy. This on behalf of these people, Your Excellency.
You will remain here, Ambassador. And then I would like to request 5 professors from University of Juba to come and hold at least 5 books on behalf of the university. Professor Loleo, Professor Joy. Okay, let's hear just 5 copies. Kenya, yeah. The Ambassador of Kenya, His Excellency Ambassador of Kenya, so come here. He's here. The young guy? No, the young guy is coming here. No, this one. So we have the professors who are going to present the University of Juba. Okay, you can pick one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Professor Joy. We have another one here. I think Professor Julia, you can come here to give to them. Maybe before they can just go. Yeah. Then now we can have a group photo together. This one's here, so we carry our books.
Everybody can carry a book. Everybody can carry a book. Doctor. So which camera are we facing? We don't know. Which camera?
Once again, I have the honor to be able to declare this great book, Revamping African Foreign Policy, declared it today on, what's the date today? It's on the 16th of October 2021. It is officially launched today. So please go out and buy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there is anybody who need to ask anything, need to understand anything concerning this, then I'm going to remain here as our guest will be able to leave at their pleasure.